Chapter 21, Passing 6 Levels in a Row. You are listening at novelfull.audio. What did he encounter in the first level? Elder Meng's heart moved, and a picture emerged in his mind. That was the picture of Bai Fei punching the metal spider. This surprised Elder Meng. It's really simple and rough. The metal spider level is neither difficult nor easy, because this level mainly tests observation. The metal spider looks very hard, but in fact, it is just a puppet, so there must be some weak points on it. As long as you find those weak points, you can easily solve them. After all, to become a formal disciple, wisdom and combat power are both indispensable. However, Bai Fei defeated the opponent with one punch. This kid's body is so strong, no wonder he is so confident. Elder Meng thought secretly. After all, to blow up the metal spider, you must at least exceed the strength of the 7th or 8th level of the gathering spirit realm. This kid is interesting. This made Elder Meng feel expectant, so his mind fell on Bai Fei and followed him. After reaching the 2nd level, Bai Fei immediately felt that there seemed to be an invisible consciousness on his body spying on him, which made him feel uncomfortable, but he did not feel any hostility from this consciousness. So Bai Fei felt that this consciousness should come from the consciousness of the 9-story pass tower. After all, he had heard that this 9-story pass tower was born with spiritual intelligence. Maybe I just want to record it, Bai Fei said secretly in his heart, and then he stopped thinking about it. Soon after, Bai Fei saw a light gate appear in the distance. Seeing the light gate appear, Bai Fei was a little surprised, and secretly thought, strange, is there no test in this level? Thinking like this, Bai Fei stepped towards the direction of the light gate. However, after walking a few steps, the change happened. Countless lights bloomed in the void, and swords condensed out, and then shot towards Bai Fei in unison. Bai Fei frowned slightly when he saw this scene, and then he raised his hands and swung them forward. Dang! Bai Fei's fist smashed directly and broke the flying sword. As for Bai Fei's body, there was no sign of damage. At that moment, Bai Fei easily broke through and walked into the light gate. Elder Meng was speechless when he saw this scene. The test of the 2nd level is a killing array. The test is still observation. The main thing is to find the pattern from the killing array, and then dodge these swords. As a result, Bai Fei just relied on his strong body and broke through. I have to say, it's really simple and rough. The next several levels are also like this. This made Elder Meng, who was observing secretly, a little angry. Reckless man. Really a reckless man. Can you use your brain a little? Of course, Bai Fei naturally didn't know about Elder Meng's complaints. In his mind, since his body could withstand these attacks, why should he waste energy thinking about it? Wouldn't it be simpler and more brutal to just push forward? So, Bai Fei rushed all the way and passed the 6th level directly. After completing the test of the 6th level, 2 light gates suddenly condensed in the void. Seeing this, Bai Fei was slightly startled. What's going on? You have passed the 6th level and can become a formal disciple. At this time, an old and majestic voice sounded in the void. That was the voice of Elder Meng. These 2 light gates represent 2 choices. The left one is to end the level immediately and become a formal disciple. The right one is to continue the level. It's up to you how to choose. But I have to tell you first, starting from the 7th level, it is no longer as simple as the previous one, which can be easily passed by brute force. It can be said that you have to think clearly. Hearing what Elder Meng said, Bai Fei's face showed a strange look. Why does he always feel that Elder Meng seems to have something against him? However, after thinking for a while, Bai Fei stepped directly towards the light gate on the right. Since he is here, he must give it a try, right? Although the prodigy who passed the 9 levels that year is already at the peak of the body refining realm, but compared to the prodigy back then, his strength is not bad. Perhaps, he can also pass the level. Seeing Bai Fei step into the light gate on the right, Elder Meng's old face also showed a faint smile, muttering to himself, very good, it has been a long time since anyone dared to try to pass the 7th level, I hope you don't let me down. Buzz, when Bai Fei walked into the light gate of the 7th level, the entire 9-story tower suddenly shook and burst into a ray of light. The next second, a light screen appeared in the air. This scene immediately attracted the attention of countless people. What's the situation? Is this a light screen? Someone challenged the seventh level again. Only the errant disciples who have not become formal disciples and have reached the seventh level are qualified to make the 9-layered tower produce the light screen. After all, as Elder Meng said, starting from the seventh level, the difficulty of each level is hell level, therefore, they will choose to broadcast it at the same frequency for everyone to see. It can be said that this is a good opportunity to become famous. Of course, if you can't get through, then your ending is likely to be death in it. This is why many disciples choose to stop after breaking through the 6th level. After all, that can really kill people. Brother Hai, look. Light screen. At this time, near the 9-layered tower, a errant disciple saw the picture on the light screen and was shocked. He hurriedly shouted to Zhou Hai, who was bullying a errant disciple, heard this and said with an unhappy face, "It's just a light screen, what's the big deal? It's not like I haven't seen it before." "No, Brother Hai, it's Bai Fei. Bai Fei has passed the level." "What?" Hearing this, Zhou Hai suddenly turned his head and looked over, then, he saw that the scene presented on the light screen was Bai Fei, who he wanted to tear into pieces in his dreams. This kid ran to pass the level. Zhou Hai was shocked, and his eyes suddenly became gloomy. Chapter 22, Climbing the Ladder. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Damn guy, he actually went to break through the 9 levels. Zhou Hai's eyes became extremely gloomy and his face looked ugly, because Bai Fei's strength was too strong. Zhou Hai did not bother him these days, of course, this was only temporary, because Zhou Hai had to wait for his brother Zhou Yulin to come out of seclusion. After all, only Zhou Yulin could deal with Bai Fei. But what Zhou Hai did not expect was that Bai Fei actually chose to break through the 9 levels at this time. Once Bai Fei passed the 9 levels, he could officially become an outer disciple. At that time, Bai Fei only needed to choose an elder to worship him, so it would not be so easy for them to deal with him again. Brother Hai, Bai Fei has made it to the 7th level. Is he looking for death? Brother Hai, I think that kid will definitely die. That's right, many people can hardly make it to the last 3 levels, he will pay the price for his arrogance. At this time, Zhou Hai's lackeys expressed their opinions one by one, thinking that Bai Fei would definitely die in the last 3 levels. After hearing this, Zhou Hai came back to his senses, snorted coldly, and said with cold eyes, "Of course I know. I want to see how miserable Bai Fei will die." Not only the outer disciples saw this light screen, even some outer elders noticed this situation. Qiu Feng, who was practicing in the cave, also sensed the energy fluctuations emitted by the 9-story exquisite tower, opened his eyes, moved his feet, and came to the outside of the cave, and then saw the huge light screen in the sky. When he saw that the figure on the light screen was Bai Fei, Qiu Feng raised his eyebrows, and a faint smile appeared on his old face. "Finally, I went to challenge the level. I just don't know if you will succeed in breaking through the 9 levels like the previous one." Because no one chose to break through the 7th level for too long, the light screen of the 9-story exquisite tower has not been lit for a long time. Now someone has once again broken into the 7th level, which is a very noteworthy thing for countless disciples and elders. Only in this way can they witness whether it is the rise of a new star or a short-lived firework. At this moment, Bai Fei didn't know that his every move was being watched by the entire outer sect of the Blood Sword sect. After he came to the 7th level, he found that there was a ladder above the 7th level. The ladder spread upwards, and there was no end in sight, but it was obvious that this was the test of the 7th level. Climb the ladder. Bai Fei raised his eyebrows, and a look of surprise appeared on his face. He really didn't expect that the 7th level test was to climb the ladder, but this ladder, it doesn't look like there is anything there. Bai Fei no longer hesitated and stepped up. When Bai Fei stepped on the stairs, a terrifying pressure enveloped him, like a mountain pressing down on his head, trying to crush Bai Fei into a meat paste. But Bai Fei had already prepared for it, so the moment his body bent, he roared angrily, his muscles suddenly tensed, and forcibly resisted this pressure. So there is such pressure on the ladder. Bai Fei now finally understood why the 7th level was to climb the ladder. There is a very terrifying gravity on the ladder. The higher you go, the stronger the gravity. If you are not careful, you are likely to be crushed into meat paste. Of course, for Bai Fei now, it is still not a problem. I just don't know how far I can go. Bai Fei took a deep breath, no longer hesitated, took his own steps, and climbed up the ladder. As Bai Fei climbed the ladder, he also felt the terrifying pressure on each step. Fortunately, Bai Fei's body has been strengthened to the second level of blood quenching, otherwise, it would be really difficult to resist. Watching Bai Fei gradually climb the ladder, the audience outside the 9-story exquisite tower all whispered and discussed. Can this Bai Fei really climb the ladder? It feels a bit difficult. It's hard to do. The higher you go, the greater the gravity. If he forcibly climbs the ladder, I'm afraid there is only one result, being crushed into meat paste. Bai Fei also felt that the gravity on each step was twice that of the previous step, and this multiple is still increasing continuously. Bai Fei has already walked the first step, there are 10 steps in a staircase, now Bai Fei is entering the second step. Although the first step put a lot of pressure on Bai Fei, it was relatively easy and he still endured it steadily, but when Bai Fei stepped onto the second step, he felt a gravity that was even more terrifying than before. At that moment, Bai Fei felt as if there were 100,000 mountains pressing down on his shoulders, and his knees couldn't help but bend down. Ha! Bai Fei immediately opened his eyes wide and shouted, then the spiritual energy in his body rolled out and covered the surface of his body. At that moment, Bai Fei felt that the pressure was reduced in vain. This made Bai Fei's breathing become a little rapid. From just now till now, Bai Fei has not used his true qi, just wanting to rely on his own body to counter the gravity on the ladder, in addition to saving more strength. More importantly, Bai Fei wants to use this method to temper his body. Bai Fei knows very well in his heart that it is not possible to pass the level in a short time. It took nearly a month for that proud son of heaven to pass the last 3 levels. And at that time, he was still at the peak of the body refining realm. Moreover, after passing the level, he was also scarred and only had 1 breath left, but since then, he has been promoted all the way and has become a contemporary existence that suppresses all heroes, which is extremely terrifying. This means that he must have got some opportunity here. Therefore, what Bai Fei has to do now is to stabilize his mentality and proceed step by step. Bai Fei does not want to compete with that proud son of heaven, because he can find that the gravity on the ladder can constantly temper his body. The gravity on the first step was not enough to temper Bai Fei, because Bai Fei's body had already passed that level. However, the gravity on the second step could only be endured by Bai Fei relying on the spiritual energy to prevent his body from collapsing, which was just right for Bai Fei to use for cultivation. Chapter 23 Gravity Ladder. You are listening at novelfull.audio. So, under the watchful eyes of the crowd, Bai Fei began to walk and stop, tempering his body with the gravity of the ladder. Seeing Bai Fei like this, all the audience present were shocked. They didn't understand what Bai Fei was doing. However, some people guessed that Bai Fei was probably using his body to adapt to the gravity on the ladder, because this would make it easier for Bai Fei to climb the ladder. In the blink of an eye, 2 days passed. As for Bai Fei, he finally climbed the second step and entered the third step. Bai Fei looked forward and found that there was a door at the end of the third step. Bai Fei knew that as long as he passed this door, he would successfully pass the 7th level, but he also knew that the gravity of the third step would be more terrible than the previous one. At that moment, Bai Fei took a deep breath, circulated his own spiritual energy with all his strength, clenched his fists, and then took a step carefully. Boom! At that moment, Bai Fei felt as if the whole world was suppressing him and hitting his body. The terrible gravity directly destroyed his spiritual defense and hit his body. Afterwards, his body began to tear apart, and the huge force also forced him to lie down on the ground. At this moment, it was as if the power of heaven and earth had descended and wanted him to surrender. Bai Fei knew very well that if he really fell down here, he would not be able to get up again, but he had no way to resist the suppression of this gravity, so he could only force his knees to bend down and kneel on the ground. Bang! The knees fell to the ground, and the huge force crushed the bones in the knees. The intense pain was transmitted to every nerve of Bai Fei, making Bai Fei feel like he was going to faint, but Bai Fei gritted his teeth and forced himself to stay conscious and not faint. If he really fainted here, he would be close to death. Boom, boom, boom. The heart was beating strongly, because it was squeezed by external pressure, so that its beating accelerated. Bai Fei supported himself on the ground with both hands, tried to climb up, and then used all his strength to circulate his own spiritual energy, nourish his body, and fight against the gravity of the ladder. I can't give up like this. You want me to fall here? Impossible. Bai Fei roared hysterically and fought madly. This scene also moved countless people after seeing it. They didn't expect that Bai Fei would be so tenacious. It's come to this point, and he's still unwilling to give up. Of course, for some people, they wish Bai Fei would die quickly. For example, when Zhou Hai saw this scene, he said coldly, "You, a waste, want to pass the 9 levels? Are you kidding? Who do you think you are? Hurry up and die." Just like that, Bai Fei stood on that step motionlessly in this posture for 3 days and 3 nights. This made many disciples who were watching wonder if Bai Fei had died on it. However, if Bai Fei died, according to reason, the light screen should be extinguished and his body should be teleported out, but now, the light screen is still playing, which means that Bai Fei has not died. However, in this situation, how long can Bai Fei hold on? Bai Fei's tenacity and persistence made many disciples feel good about him and pray for him in their hearts. Finally, in the afternoon, Bai Fei's fingers finally moved slightly. As his fingers moved, his body also trembled slightly. Then, the amplitude of the movement became larger and larger. His body slowly lifted up, and then his knees began to straighten with trembling. Finally, he stood up. Look! He moved. He stood up. He succeeded. This scene made everyone exclaim after seeing it. Yes, Bai Fei stood up. After 3 days and 3 nights of fighting against the gravity of the ladder, Bai Fei's body finally adapted to this place and was able to control his body to move freely. Damn it! Zhou Hai saw this scene, his face was full of coldness, and he gritted his teeth and said, "Why is this waste not dead yet?" Zhou Hai really didn't want to see such a scene, because such a scene means that Bai Fei's talent is very high, but the more this happened, the more jealous Zhou Hai became. More importantly, he would feel panic in his heart. Because he knew very well in his heart that once Bai Fei really succeeded in passing the 9 levels, he would shine in the entire blood sword sect, and even the high-ranking members of the inner sect would compete to accept Bai Fei as their master. At that time, Bai Fei would have a bright future. In that case, it would not be a question of whether they could deal with Bai Fei, but whether Bai Fei would deal with them. Therefore, Zhou Hai's heart began to panic. No, it's impossible. He will never succeed. He will definitely die in there. In the ladder, Bai Fei exhaled lightly and clenched his palms slightly. Although Bai Fei was still seriously injured, he had completely adapted to the gravity here. Therefore, Bai Fei began to climb the ladder. Under the attention of the crowd, he stepped up step by step, but every step, after stepping up, made Bai Fei's whole body shake violently, making many people's hearts seem to be raised to their throats, and they were very frightened, but every step was successfully stepped up. Unwavering. Finally, Bai Fei walked to the door of the ladder. He stretched out his palm and pushed the door of the ladder open with trembling hands. The next second, a dazzling light burst out. Ding! A clear and bright bell sounded suddenly in the void. This was the bell sound emitted by the 9-story exquisite tower. Because this means that Bai Fei has successfully passed the 7th level. This bell sounded throughout the blood sword sect's outer gate, and everyone in the outer gate heard it, whether they were on the scene or in seclusion, they were all affected by the sound of the bell. When Elder Meng heard the bell sound, his mouth curled up slightly, revealing a faint smile. Chapter 24 Soul Beast Ladder. You are listening at novelfull.audio. At the same time, in the meeting hall of the outer gate, a group of warriors with strong auras were discussing something. As a result, the sound of the bell attracted everyone's attention. The bell of the Linglong Tower rang. A middle-aged man with a mustache, a crown on his head, and a dark green robe had a look of surprise on his face. Is someone passing the 7th level? Only the menial disciples who have not yet become formal disciples can make the bell of the 9-story Linglong Tower ring. However, under normal circumstances, it is not an easy thing for menial disciples to become formal disciples, not to mention passing the 7th level. As a result, today, a newcomer actually passed the 7th level and caused the bell of the 9-story Linglong Tower to resonate. This is a great thing. You know, the number of disciples who can pass the 7 levels of the blood sword sect every year is very small. It is also because of this that the performance of the blood sword sect in the 4 sects martial arts competition in recent years has plummeted, and it has been at the bottom every year, resulting in the shrinkage of their resources and a significant reduction in their power. Similarly, it is also because of this that it has become difficult for them to recruit new talents with high talents. Let's go and take a look. At this moment, the middle-aged man stood up and took everyone present to the 9-story Linglong Tower to find out. At this time, Bai Fei, who pushed open the door of the ladder, felt a strong impact of light, forcing him to close his eyes. After he got used to the light a little, he opened his eyes. However, when he opened his eyes, a look of astonishment appeared on his face. Because what appeared in front of him was still the ladder. What's the situation? Bai Fei was full of questions. Didn't he pass the ladder? How could there be a ladder? Buzz. However, Bai Fei saw that the ladder here had become a golden ladder. The ladder he had walked on before was a silver ladder. In other words, this is the 8th level. Could it be that the 8th level is also a ladder? Seeing this, Bai Fei frowned and thought secretly. He knew that this would definitely not be a gravity ladder, otherwise, wouldn't it lose its meaning? However, if this is the 8th level, then it means that the ladder here must also have different powers. I just don't know what power it is. Recover first. Bai Fei prepared to use his power to heal his injuries. After all, he had just suffered a serious injury, but when Bai Fei reacted, he found that his injuries had healed. Not only that, his body has also become stronger, the meridians are tough, the bones are hard, and the flesh is well developed. This surprised Bai Fei. What is this situation? Could it be that when I passed through the heavenly ladder gate just now, it just helped me repair my body? Bai Fei speculated secretly in his heart. After all, this is the only possibility, but think about it. After all, starting from the 7th level, each level is extremely dangerous, and it can be said that it is a life and death struggle. If you can't continue because of your injuries after passing through, this is obviously unreasonable. After all, there is only one chance to pass through the 9 levels before becoming a formal disciple, so, if you can successfully pass through, your injuries will be repaired and strengthened at the same time. This made Bai Fei's mouth curl up slightly, outlining a satisfied smile. His eyes fell on the golden ladder in front of him, and he slowly said, "Then now, let me see what you are capable of." At that moment, Bai Fei moved his feet and stepped onto the golden ladder. Buzz. When Bai Fei stepped onto the golden ladder, the surrounding scene changed in an instant. The next second, a series of roars rang in his ears. Then, Bai Fei found himself in the group of fierce beasts. The fierce beasts were flashing scarlet eyes and surrounded him. What's going on? Seeing this scene, Bai Fei's face showed a look of astonishment. Roar. A fierce beast roared and pounced on Bai Fei. Bai Fei subconsciously raised his fist and hit it. Bang! The body of the fierce beast was immediately knocked out by Bai Fei's fist. Then the fierce beast hit the ground heavily and exploded, and then formed a wisp of smoke and dissipated into the void. Soul power. Bai Fei felt the dissipated smoke, and the energy breath it exuded was clearly soul power. In other words, these fierce beasts are all condensed by soul power. At this moment, Bai Fei's eyes became extremely bright. In order to speculate whether his idea was correct, Bai Fei took the initiative to attack. He clenched his fist, came to a wolf, and punched it on the head. Bang! The wolf exploded and turned into a wisp of smoke. However, before the wisp of smoke dissipated, Bai Fei quickly stretched out his palm, grabbed it, and activated the basic soul tempering method. At that moment, this ray of soul power poured into Bai Fei's body, replenishing some of the power that Bai Fei had just lost. It's true. Bai Fei's eyes immediately revealed a look of enlightenment. Obviously, the 8th level of the golden ladder is the soul tempering ladder. In it, one's own soul will be forcibly separated and then enter a fantasy to fight against these beasts. To put it bluntly, this is a test of soul power. Of course, if it is such a test, then for Bai Fei, not only is there no danger, but it is a paradise. You know, now Bai Fei's soul has broken through to the 9th level of perception. If he wants to improve further, he must take all kinds of natural treasures that can increase soul power, or elixirs, but such things are very precious and rare. So if Bai Fei wants to improve, he can only do tasks through the map system and earn points to exchange. Of course, this method will be slower, but now there is such a great place, so why doesn't Bai Fei hurry up to practice? This made Bai Fei feel that he didn't need to rush to climb the ladder, and it was best to take it slowly. At this moment, Bai Fei punched with his left fist and kicked with his right foot to get rid of these beasts, and absorbed all the soul power they formed. Chapter 25, Taking Advantage of Others. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Soon, these ferocious beasts disappeared, and Bai Fei's consciousness returned to his physical body. Seeing this, Bai Fei immediately stepped onto the second step without any hesitation. As a result, his soul fell into an illusion again and was surrounded by various ferocious beasts. The ferocious beasts on the first step are all first-level ferocious beasts, and there are only 10 of them. The ferocious beasts formed this time were all second-level primary ferocious beasts, and there were also 10 of them. However, when Bai Fei saw that there were only 10 second-level primary beasts, his face was full of disappointment, and he said with some regret, "Why are there only 10? Is it too few?" Of course, even though it was a small number, Bai Fei still had to take action to solve it, but in the blink of an eye, Bai Fei solved it easily. As a result, everyone present could see Bai Fei on the light screen. He almost stayed in place for a few minutes and then climbed up the stairs again. The speed was even faster than in the 7th level. For a moment, everyone was shocked and felt it was very incredible. What's the situation? Why is he running so fast? No, is that really the 8th level? In everyone's perception, the 8th level should be more dangerous than the 7th level, but now, why does it look like Bai Fei is jumping around in level 8 as if it were his own home? It doesn't look dangerous at all. Ma Quan was also shocked. He didn't expect Bai Fei to do it to such an extent. At this moment, a middle-aged man wearing a crown facing the sky, dark green robes, and a mustache had already arrived here with everyone in the meeting hall. When everyone present saw his appearance, their expressions changed greatly, and they quickly bowed respectfully. Greetings to the master. It turned out that this middle-aged man was Lin Tingtao, the leader of the outer sect of the Blood Sword sect. Lin Tingtao waved his hand, indicating that everyone should not be too polite. Then he looked at the scene on the light screen and noticed that Bai Fei climbed up the stairs at the 8th level very easily. He couldn't help but frown and was confused. He asked, "The 8th level? Isn't the 8th level the soul beast ladder?" An elder standing behind Lin Tingtao replied, "Master, this is indeed the case. I remember that the 8th level tested the power of the soul, right? Why does this kid seem to be enjoying it?" Lin Tingtao asked in confusion. "Is it possible that this boy's soul is very strong?" After hearing Lin Tingtao's words, everyone didn't know how to respond. However, Lin Tingtao didn't say anything more and continued to watch. Soon, Bai Fei had reached the end of the first staircase. However, Bai Fei did not intend to step up. Instead, he turned around and jumped down again. This scene appeared on the light screen, shocking everyone present. What is he doing? What's going on? It was obvious that Fidu had already successfully stepped onto the upper level, so why did he jump down again? After a while, Bai Fei stepped onto the steps above again, but within a few minutes, he jumped again, just like that, jumping back and forth repeatedly. Seeing this scene, everyone was shocked. Only Elder Meng's face became extremely ugly, because he knew that this bastard Bai Fei was gathering the wool of the 9-story Linglong Tower. Yes, just when Bai Fei was about to step onto the first ladder transfer platform, he suddenly wondered if he would fall into an illusion again and have sex with those ferocious beasts. What about struggle? If this is the case, does it mean that I can absorb more soul power? Just do it when you think of it. Bai Fei took action. Then, just as Bai Fei thought, he would re-enter the illusion and fight the ferocious beasts. This made Bai Fei become extremely excited all of a sudden. He went up and down crazily, jumping sideways repeatedly, and kept pulling out the wool. After all, there are not many opportunities like this. If you don't wait now, when will you wait? This situation was naturally noticed by Elder Meng. He really didn't expect that this boy would be so shameless. This made him so angry that he finally couldn't help but speak out. "You brat! Stop trying to haggle. If you don't think it's embarrassing, I think it's embarrassing." Are you ashamed to do such a thing in front of the entire sect? Bai Fei, who originally wanted to continue gathering wool, suddenly heard an angry old voice ringing in his ears, which startled him and made him look around with vigilance. Stop looking around. I'm not around. I'm the gatekeeper here. I can detect what's going on inside. You hurry up and don't pluck wool here. Otherwise, if the guy wakes up later, he will find you. If you try to pluck its wool, see if it will beat you to death. At this time, Elder Meng seemed to be aware of Bai Fei's thoughts, so he shouted again, his tone full of threats. Bai Fei also recognized that the voice belonged to Elder Meng, who had just been guarding in front of the tower gate. From what Elder Meng just said, Bai Fei learned a lot of information. One of them is that he is being noticed by everyone now. Although Bai Fei didn't know what was going on, it was obvious that everyone was watching his every move. This startled Bai Fei, and he thought to himself, fortunately, I didn't do anything just now, otherwise, wouldn't all my secrets be exposed? Of course, what Bai Fei was more concerned about was the guy that Elder Meng just mentioned. Obviously, that guy should refer to the spirit of the 9-story Linglong Tower. In other words, the spirit of the 9-story Linglong Tower is now sleeping. Of course, this is not Bai Fei's business, but he didn't expect that Elder Meng would find out that he was taking advantage of others, which was really embarrassing. But fortunately, Elder Meng didn't say much afterwards, just asked Bai Fei to quickly climb the ladder to pass the test. Obviously, Elder Meng was worried that Bai Fei would take advantage of others so much that the spirit would wake up. If the spirit really wakes up, then Bai Fei will really be finished. Although Bai Fei felt a little regretful, since the matter had been exposed, there was no need to continue, so Bai Fei did not hesitate and continued to climb the ladder. Seeing that Bai Fei did not fleece the sheep anymore, Elder Meng was relieved. He was really worried that this kid would fleece the sheep endlessly and really wake up the spirit of the weapon. Chapter 26, The Ladder of My True Self. You are listening at novelfull.audio. But this kid, is his soul so strong? The power of the soul beast ladder is not a threat to him at all. This made Elder Meng's heart full of confusion. After all, he has been guarding the 9-story Linglong Tower for so many years, but this is the first time he has seen someone who is not afraid of the soul beast ladder, and even treats the soul beast ladder as wool to pull. You know, the soul beasts on the soul beast ladder contain very huge soul power. The souls of ordinary warriors are not so strong that they can resist the impact of these soul beasts. Although Elder Meng didn't know that this guy's soul strength would be so strong, it was a good thing anyway. Because of Elder Meng's warning, Bai Fei didn't dare to delay at all, and directly passed the 8th level and entered the 9th level. Ding! Ding! When Bai Fei passed the 8th level, the bell of the 9-story Linglong Tower rang again. 2 consecutive bells echoed throughout the outer gate, and even spread to the inner gate of the Blood Sword sect. There is no doubt that this attracted the attention of more people in the Blood Sword sect. Has anyone made it to the 8th level? Interesting. It's been so long. Someone finally made it to the 8th level again. Outside the 9-story Linglong Tower, Lin Tingtao watched Bai Fei enter the 8th level. His eyes widened slightly, and a hint of excitement appeared on his resolute face. He thought in his heart, this kid. He is a plastic talent. We must take him in. Lin Tingtao knew very well that with the strength that Bai Fei had just shown on the light screen, it was enough for him to personally go down and take him in as his apprentice. With Bai Fei's strength, it was more than enough to enter the inner gate. Therefore, Lin Tingtao must take him in before more people know about Bai Fei, so that no one will snatch him from him. And maybe he can rely on Bai Fei to improve his identity and status again. Thinking of this, Lin Tingtao couldn't wait to see Bai Fei, and even hoped that Bai Fei could finish the level and come out of the 9-story Linglong Tower at this time. In this way, he can take him in as his apprentice. At this time, Elder Meng also saw the dazzling light flashing in Lin Tingtao's eyes, and couldn't help but frown, but he didn't say anything, but continued to focus on Bai Fei. At this time, Bai Fei had already stepped onto the 9th level. Just as Bai Fei had thought before, the 9th level was also a ladder. However, the ladder of the 9th level was different from the ladders of the 7th and 8th levels. There was only one straight ladder here, with a total of 12 steps. Looking at the ladder with prismatic light flowing on the surface, Bai Fei narrowed his eyes, took a step up, and landed on the steps. Bang! Bai Fei's foot landed on the steps, however, nothing happened, there was no gravity, there was no phantom soul beast, it was as if the ladder in front of him was simple and did not contain any power. This made Bai Fei confused, and he didn't understand what was going on. However, Bai Fei still stepped up. Until the end, no problems were found. When Bai Fei reached the top floor, he was shocked, because he found that there was no exit here. In other words, he was trapped here. Just as Bai Fei was thinking this in his mind, a beam of light suddenly descended from the sky. Boom! The dazzling light burst out, stimulating Bai Fei to close his eyes. After the strong light gradually went out, Bai Fei finally opened his eyes and looked forward. Then, a look of astonishment that was difficult to conceal appeared on his handsome face. The pupils of his eyes shrank involuntarily. How is this possible? Bai Fei screamed in his heart, because in front of Bai Fei, a figure appeared, the owner of this figure. It was himself. This made Bai Fei a little dazed, wondering if there was something wrong with his eyes. However, the figure who looked exactly like Bai Fei twisted his neck, raised his palm, raised it towards him, a sarcastic smile appeared at the corner of his lips, and said very proudly, "Defeat me. Otherwise, you will be trapped here for the rest of your life." Hearing his words, Bai Fei came back to his senses, frowned slightly, squinted his eyes, and whispered to himself, "Is this, asking me to fight myself?" Yes, this is the test of the 9th level. Its name is, the Ladder of the True Self. Here, an illusion of the true self that is exactly the same as the challenger will be created. As the saying goes, the biggest enemy in life is yourself. Only by surpassing yourself and defeating yourself can you become stronger. This is why countless proud sons of heaven will fall at the 9th level. Who can beat yourself? After all your means have been captured, your fighting style and thinking ability have been seen through, and they can even predict your behavior in advance, leaving you nowhere to hide. In this case, how can you defeat the opponent? Bai Fei quickly understood the content of the 9th level test, so, he couldn't help but narrow his eyes, with a solemn look in his eyes, and whispered softly, "This is really not easy to do." However, although it is not easy to do, Bai Fei also knows in his heart that he has come this far, and there is no reason to retreat. More importantly, the expression of his true self-illusion is so annoying that he really wants to beat him up. So, Bai Fei didn't hesitate at all and stomped on the ground with one foot. A muffled sound of bang sounded on the ground, and Bai Fei's body shot out like an arrow leaving the bowstring. In a blink of an eye, Bai Fei had appeared in front of the true self-illusion, raised his fist, and hit it fiercely. Bai Fei didn't show any mercy because the opponent was himself. Because he knew very well in his heart that this true self-illusion was a fake. Since it was a fake, of course he had to beat it to death. Seeing this, the true self-illusion still maintained an arrogant look on his face, and his eyes revealed a look of contempt. Then he raised his palm, clenched his 5 fingers, and collided with Bai Fei's fist. Bang! A thunderous collision sounded loudly in the void. A strong gust of wind spread out between the 2 fists. Chapter 27, Challenging My True Self. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The fists collided and the strong wind spread. The ground cracked with cracks due to the impact of such terrifying force. Immediately afterwards, their bodies were knocked back. Bai Fei's pupils shrank slightly, and he discovered that the physical body of this illusion of his true self was exactly the same as his own, very powerful. In other words, the illusion of the true self is equivalent to the complete self. This made Bai Fei frown again, his body flashed, and he rushed towards the illusion of his true self. The illusion of the true self faced Bai Fei without any hesitation. Bang bang bang. Boom boom boom. Dong dong dong. Bai Fei and the illusion of the true self moved back and forth in this space. Fists and feet collided, and a loud sound broke out. Every collision caused ripples to spread in the void, as if the void was about to be shattered. The two are like gods of war, so powerful. Outside the 9-story Linglong Tower, on the sky light screen, the battle between Bai Fei and the illusion of the true self was continuously playing. The scene of the fierce battle between the two made countless disciples feel excited and unable to extricate themselves, especially those disciples who majored in body cultivation. Their eyes were filled with blazing light and they were extremely excited. After all, there are not many warriors who specialize in body cultivation. The strength that Bai Fei is showing now is a good publicity for the warriors in the realm of body training. This made many disciples in the body refining realm have a favorable impression of Bai Fei. They even asked them to cheer for Bai Fei, especially when they saw Bai Fei suppressing the illusion of his true self from time to time. They couldn't help but cheer. In their understanding, Bai Fei must be able to win and pass the 9th level. Only some more experienced warriors saw the clues. Just like Elder Meng, he saw Bai Fei occupying the top spot and suppressing the illusion of his true self. There was no joy on his old face, but instead he frowned. This kid is really confused. Do you really think that the illusion of your true self will be defeated so easily by your brute force? You are just consuming your power for no reason. Elder Meng has a very deep understanding of the illusion of the true self condensed by the true self ladder. The strength shown by the illusion of the true self may seem relatively weak at the beginning, but what is it in reality? That is the illusion of the true self assessing its own strength. When the evaluation is completed, the strength it shows will be very powerful. More importantly, the illusion of the true self has infinite energy. After all, it is an energy body created by the true self ladder, so it can naturally be continuously restored through the power of the true self ladder. On the other hand, the breaker will consume a lot of his own energy during the battle, so that in the end he will be unable to replenish his energy and will be exhausted. This is a trap set by the true self ladder. If you can detect this trap in a short time, you still have a chance to win, but obviously, Bai Fei, who was fighting the illusion of his true self, did not discover this trap. This means that Bai Fei will be trapped in a continuous battle with the illusion of his true self, and will eventually be defeated by exhaustion. This made Elder Meng couldn't help but shake his head, with disappointment showing in his cloudy eyes. I've already said it before, you can't break through with brute force alone. Now you have to reap the consequences. In Elder Meng's opinion, Bai Fei must not be able to succeed. Of course, although Bai Fei couldn't pass the 9th level, the strength he showed earlier was enough to prove his talent. Therefore, as long as Bai Fei admits defeat, he can intervene and rescue him to avoid being beaten to death by the illusion of his true self. However, any self-respecting disciple might not be able to declare that he is inferior to an illusion in front of so many people, right? After all, there are no examples in the past. Because of his pride, he was unwilling to surrender and admit defeat until his death, resulting in his own life being wasted in vain. I hope you won't be so spineless. Elder Meng thought secretly in his heart. After all, he had seen too many tough disciples, and the result was that they died trying to break through the barrier because they were too tough. Obviously, as long as you admit defeat, you can survive. Boom! Another thunderous crash sounded in the void. Bai Fei's fist collided hard with the fist of true self-illusion again. Immediately afterwards, Bai Fei's body was knocked back. He felt some numbness in his arm. Bai Fei stared at the illusion of his true self in front of him, and his breathing became a little rapid. This guy's physical body is the same as mine. It's too strong and there's no way to break it. Bai Fei thought quickly in his heart, feeling that he couldn't go on like this. So, with a thought in his mind, he took out the Qingling sword from the system space. Immediately afterwards, Bai Fei waved the Qingling sword and displayed the martial arts of the Blood Sword sect. The bloody sword is broken. Blood sword slash. Blood sword slash. The blood-red sword energy shot out from the Qingling sword and bombarded the illusion of the true self. When the true self-illusion saw Bai Fei take out the Qingling sword, he was stunned for a moment, but soon an identical Qingling sword condensed in his palm, and then he also waved it, displaying the same blood sword sect martial arts as Bai Fei. Bang! Boom! Sword cheese collided in the air, and a loud noise sounded. Blood-colored light bloomed and spread all around. Bai Fei rushed out, swung the Qingling sword, and quickly slashed at the true self-illusion. However, the true self-illusion easily resisted it. No matter which angle Bai Fei attacked from, the true self-illusion saw through it and resisted it. It was as if the true self-illusion had the ability to read minds and could understand Bai Fei's thoughts. Yes, after all, the true self-illusion was copied based on Bai Fei as a template, so what Bai Fei was thinking, the true self-illusion could naturally know. Seeing that all his attacks were blocked, Bai Fei's mouth twitched slightly, and his eyes showed an angry look. TSK. It's really annoying. For the first time, Bai Fei felt that he was so annoying. Dang! Another clanging sound was heard, the two spirit swords collided with each other, and sparks flew. Bai Fei took advantage of this time to raise his left hand and quickly formed a seal, and then a low voice sounded from his mouth. Breaking Mountain Fist. At that moment, Bai Fei clenched his palm and punched a fist with a heavy energy aura to bombard the true self-illusion. Chapter 28 The Truth. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The true self-illusion seemed to be a little caught off guard, and had not expected that Bai Fei would perform such a martial art, so his body was hit by this fist, and his whole body flew backwards. Bang! A crash sounded on the ground. However, the true self-illusion quickly stood up, with a touch of confusion in his eyes, but soon became cold and fierce, and attacked Bai Fei again. Seeing this, Bai Fei raised his eyebrows, and doubts grew in his heart. Strange, just now this true self-illusion, is there a confused emotion? But why is he confused? Bai Fei moved his feet and dodged the true self-illusion's long sword stab, and then waved the Qingling sword in his hand again, slashing it fiercely. While thinking about the situation just now, Bai Fei felt that there was nothing wrong with his eyes. He did see the confusion in the true self-illusion's eyes just now. The question is, what is the reason for his confusion? Was he confused that he had not dodged his attack just now? At this time, Bai Fei suddenly thought of a question. It was indeed the first time that he had hit the true self-illusion since the battle with the true self-illusion, and the true self-illusion did not dodge it. What was the reason? Bai Fei felt as if he had grasped a key opportunity, but he was still a little unclear about what this opportunity was. The battle was still going on, various martial arts emerged one after another, the situation was balanced again, even vaguely. The true self-illusion began to gain the upper hand. Because the fight lasted so long, Bai Fei's spiritual energy had been consumed a lot. On the other hand, the true self-illusion still maintained abundant energy. This made Bai Fei finally discover that the true self-illusion had unlimited spiritual energy to provide. In other words, if he continued to fight like this, he would be exhausted sooner or later. Unless he could break the true self-illusion with one blow. However, at the same level, even the means were exactly the same. How to break it? This is obviously an impossible thing. This made Bai Fei's mood begin to become heavy. However, he was still looking for an opportunity. Finally, he found an opportunity. Breaking Mountain Fist. Bai Fei formed a seal with one hand and performed another Breaking Mountain Fist, blasting towards the true self-illusion. At this time, the true self-illusion was confused again, and then was hit by this Breaking Mountain Fist, and the body flew out horizontally. This surprised Bai Fei a little, because when this Breaking Mountain Fist was thrown out, the true self-illusion could actually resist it, but in the end, it did not resist it. Wait a minute, from just now to now, it seems that it has never performed the Breaking Mountain Fist. At this time, Bai Fei recalled the battle process from just now to now, and he found that the true self-illusion did not perform a single Breaking Mountain Fist, and in some places, the true self-illusion could obviously continue the Breaking Mountain Fist, give himself a greater offensive, and hurt himself. In the end, nothing happened. Could it be that it doesn't know how to break the Mountain Fist? It shouldn't be. Isn't it said that the true self-illusion is equivalent to one's own incarnation? If I can do it, he can do it too. Wait a minute. I think I thought of something. At this moment, Bai Fei had a flash of inspiration. At this moment, the true self-illusion attacked Bai Fei again. Try it. Seeing this, Bai Fei put away the Qingling sword in his hand with his backhand. Then, his hands quickly formed seals. As the seals of his hands changed, a heavy breath filled his hands. Xianshan shield. A low shout sounded in Bai Fei's throat, and then his hands that had formed the seals were thrown forward. The spiritual energy on Bai Fei's body rushed out along his hands, forming a small mountain-shaped air shield in the void. Swish! The spirit sword in the true self-illusion's hand pierced directly into the mountain-shaped shield, and then with a bang, the mountain-shaped shield exploded, and the fierce energy fluctuations also shot out, hitting Bai Fei's body fiercely. At that moment, Bai Fei's body was knocked out and fell heavily on the ground. It's really like this. Bai Fei was injured, and blood was overflowing from the corners of his mouth, but his eyes were shining with bright light, and there was a smile between the corners of his lips, and the whole person became very excited. This made many disciples outside the light screen feel very strange after seeing it, wondering if Bai Fei was crazy. Of course, Bai Fei was not crazy, he was so excited because he discovered an extraordinary truth. This truth is, the true self-illusion cannot copy all his power. And these uncopyable powers come from the power of the system. That's right. The two martial arts, Broken Mountain Fist and Mysterious Mountain Shield, were open from the basic blind box that Bai Fei bought from the system before. It's just that because the grade is too low, it's actually not very useful. From the time the true self-illusion appeared until now, he has not used the mountain-breaking fist and the mysterious mountain shield once, which means that the true self-illusion has no way to replicate the power given by the system. That is to say, the true self-illusion does not have its own soul technique. Soul-breaking light slash. The strongest trump card that Bai Fei currently has. If this is the case, then Bai Fei has a chance to defeat the true self-illusion. However, if he wants to defeat the true self-illusion, it means that he has to use the soul-breaking light slash, but this is his strongest trump card now. Once it is used, then the entire Blood Sword sect will know that he has such a trump card, and then everyone will be on guard against him, making the effect of his trump card greatly reduced. After Bai Fei hesitated for a while, he thought of a way. He dodged the attack of the true self-illusion with a flash of his body, and then he raised his head and shouted at the void. Elder Meng. Are you there? Elder Meng. Speak. Elder Meng. I know you must be spying on me. Elder Meng. Speak. That the scene of Bai Fei dodging the true self-illusion and shouting at the void was presented truthfully on the sky light screen. This made many spectators confused. What is he shouting? I don't know. It doesn't look like he is going to surrender. Is there anyone who can lip read? On the light screen, only the picture was presented, no sound, so they didn't know what Bai Fei was shouting. Chapter 29 3 Bells. You are listening at novelfull.audio. However, they didn't know, but Elder Meng did. He really didn't expect that this bastard boy would actually shout and call him there. What was he trying to do? Is he giving him a special treatment? Damn, I asked you to use your brain, not here. However, Elder Meng could see that Bai Fei was determined to call him out. Although the audience couldn't see what Bai Fei was saying now, they would definitely be able to guess something after a long time. By then, the things he had just secretly reminded Bai Fei of would be very likely to be exposed. Elder Meng didn't want such a thing to happen, therefore, he could only use his spiritual consciousness to send a message to Bai Fei in a bad mood. Bastard boy, what are you calling me for? Bai Fei's eyes suddenly brightened when he heard Elder Meng's voice. Before Bai Fei could say anything, Elder Meng's voice sounded again. I remind you, don't even think about asking me to let you go, it's impossible. If you really can't beat me, just admit defeat, lest you lose your life in vain. That when Bai Fei heard this, he didn't know whether to laugh or cry, thinking to himself, is my character so bad? He actually thought I wanted to ask him to cheat. At that moment, Bai Fei hurriedly said, Elder, I don't intend to ask you to help me cheat. Then what do you want to ask me for? Elder, I just want to ask if you can cut off the picture on the light screen. Bai Fei hurriedly stated his request. After all, Bai Fei didn't want his biggest trump card to be exposed too early. He was still counting on this trump card to help him survive the outer sect ranking battle. Cut off the picture on the light screen. Elder Meng was startled. He originally thought that Bai Fei wanted to ask him to help cheat. Unexpectedly, he wanted him to cut off the picture on the light screen. That's right. I have the ability to defeat this me, but I don't want to expose my trump card too early. Bai Fei did not make up any excuses, but directly expressed his thoughts. He knew very well in his heart that lying in front of a big man like Elder Meng was not an advisable thing. After hearing Bai Fei's explanation, Elder Meng suddenly realized, because he knew that it would not be long before the Blood Sword sect's outer sect ranking battle would begin. If you can hide your trump card, then you can really shine. At that moment, Elder Meng agreed to his request. Okay. Just show your strength. I can guarantee that no one else will know your current situation except me. Hearing Elder Meng's answer, Bai Fei's face was full of surprise. Thank you, Elder. After the voice fell, Bai Fei stomped his feet suddenly, and then stopped, and then quickly turned around to face the illusion of his true self. Seeing this, the true self-illusion couldn't help but sneer and said sarcastically, "What? Don't you plan to escape? Are you ready to die? Huh, the damned one is you." A confident smile appeared on Bai Fei's face, and he shouted coldly. The next second, his hands quickly formed seals. Immediately afterwards, a huge soul pressure was released from Bai Fei's body. At this moment, countless soul powers also surged out of Bai Fei's soul sea and gathered in the void. Is this soul power? Elder Meng, who was secretly observing, looked at the soul power emanating from Bai Fei, and a look of surprise appeared on his old face. Such a strong soul power. How did he do it? Elder Meng reacted and was a little shocked, because from just now to now, Bai Fei has shown all kinds of strengths. The strength of the body refining realm. The richness of the spiritual cultivation realm. Now, even the soul power is so magnificent. How can a person achieve such profound martial arts in the three realms? At this time, Elder Meng's heart moved, and he extinguished the picture on the light screen. The many spectators who were watching the light screen suddenly found that the picture on the light screen disappeared and turned into a white light, which surprised them. What's the situation? Why is the picture gone? What happened? Lin Tingtao was also stunned when he saw this scene. Now is the critical moment. Why is the picture gone? If Bai Fei had an accident, wouldn't his path to promotion be broken? At the same time, in Guanta, Bai Fei had already gathered his soul power, and then a low voice slowly sounded in his throat. Soul-breaking light slash. Buzz. At this moment, the rolling soul power gathered into a light blade, flashing a bright snow-white light, sweeping across the sky, and directly rushed towards the true self-illusion. Seeing this, the true self-illusion immediately waved the spirit sword in his hand and greeted it. However, in front of the soul-breaking light slash, all the resistance of the true self-illusion was in vain. Bang! The soul-breaking light slash directly cut the true self-illusion in half, and then exploded. At the moment of the explosion, a dazzling light bloomed, and then a light gate twisted and formed in the void. Finally, seeing the light gate appear, Bai Fei breathed a sigh of relief, then took a few breaths and slowly approached the light gate. At this time, Bai Fei's face turned a little pale. It was because the soul-breaking light slash consumed too much soul power. Fortunately, Bai Fei had made a lot of money in the 8th level, otherwise he would not have walked into the light gate, but would have to lie down to enter the light gate. The moment Bai Fei walked into the light gate, the top of the entire 9-story exquisite tower burst into a ray of light. The next second, ding! 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 3 consecutive bell sounds rang out, spreading to the entire Blood Sword sect, and even the outer areas of the Blood Sword sect were heard. 3 bell sounds. Lin Tingtao's face suddenly changed. He actually succeeded in getting through. Shwa shwa shwa. Along with the ringing of these 3 bell sounds, figures rushed over from all around the Blood Sword sect. These figures all exude powerful auras, some of them, when they step, cause ripples in the void. Sensing the rapid approach of these auras, Lin Tingtao's face darkened slightly. Finally, I can't escape. 3 bell sounds represent that the 9 levels have been passed. How many years has it been since someone from the Blood Sword sect passed the 9 levels? The last person who passed the 9 levels was the one 100 years ago. Chapter 30, Fighting for Discipleship. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Now, another person has successfully passed the 9 levels, which means, his talent may be as strong as the one 100 years ago. If he can be accepted as a disciple, his status in the Blood Sword sect will definitely rise. This made Lin Tingtao very anxious. All of a sudden, he hoped that Bai Fei would come out quickly, then accept him as a disciple. However, reality is always very bleak. Before Bai Fei came out of the 9-story exquisite tower, a figure exuding a strong aura was already approaching here, with faces full of expectations and eyes looking around. These figures were all wearing gorgeous clothes. That was the clothes of the inner sect elders. This surprised countless disciples present, because they found that it was incredible that so many elders appeared here. And they were all inner sect elders. You know, under normal circumstances, inner sect elders rarely walk around and come to the outer sect. Seeing the appearance of these inner sect elders, Lin Tingtao's mood became worse. Although he is the outer sect master, but the rank of the outer sect master is actually the same as that of the inner sect elder. After all, the outer sect master is also appointed by the inner sect elder. Master Lin. At this moment, a white-haired inner sect elder looked around and finally fell on Lin Tingtao. He slowly opened his mouth and said, "I wonder if Master Lin knows who the disciple who just rang 3 bells is." These inner sect elders who came later only heard the bells, but did not see Bai Fei on the light screen, so they didn't know who successfully passed the 9 levels. Lin Tingtao glanced at him and recognized his origin. This is an inner sect elder, a weapon refiner. Although his realm is not very good, his weapon refining method is very unique. The magic weapons he refined are of very high quality. Many elders have refined magic weapons from him. This is a person who cannot be offended easily. However, he would not reveal Bai Fei's news so easily. Therefore, Lin Tingtao just shook his head gently and said, "I don't know much either. After all, I just came here not long ago." Seeing Lin Tingtao say this, the inner sect elder stopped talking and continued to look around. As time passed, more and more inner sect elders appeared here. The aura they exuded was extremely powerful, interweaving in the void, causing circles of energy ripples to spread in the void. This made the faces of many disciples present change, and they were shocked. Why are there so many elders here? And there are inner sect elders? Is it really that powerful to pass the 9 levels? Isn't what you said nonsense? Only one of them appears every few hundred years. How can it not be powerful? That because the last disciple who passed the 9 levels was hundreds of years ago, many newly joined disciples did not know how much gold content there was in passing the 9 levels. Even most of the outer sect disciples did not know. Only the inner disciples knew the significance of passing the 9 levels. Therefore, when these inner elders appeared in front of the 9-story exquisite tower, many inner disciples also appeared here. They were also very interested in which disciple had passed the 9 levels. Boom! At this moment, the tower door finally opened. A figure stepped out from inside. That was Bai Fei. When Bai Fei appeared, Lin Tingtao's eyes suddenly opened, flashing with bright light, and then his figure flashed and appeared in front of Bai Fei. He said very directly, "Bai Fei, I am Lin Tingtao, the leader of the outer sect of the Blood Sword sect. Are you willing to worship me as your master and become my disciple?" Seeing Lin Tingtao's quick action, the other inner elders were slightly startled, and then they reacted and quickly stepped forward, especially the inner elder who was a weapon refiner who had just asked Lin Tingtao, and scolded Lin Tingtao angrily. "Damn it, Lin Tingtao, that old bastard, actually played a trick on me. Bai Fei, I am the inner sect elder Lin Jing, are you willing to worship me as your master?" "Bai Fei, I am the inner sect deputy sect master Chen Feiyan, are you willing to worship me as your master?" All of a sudden, many inner sect elders, even the inner sect deputy sect master, spoke up and expressed their willingness to accept Bai Fei as their disciple. Bai Fei, who had just walked out of the 9-story exquisite tower, was confused by the scene in front of him. Especially when he saw that the clothes on these people were all the same inner sect clothes, even if there were outer sects, they were at the level of deputy sect masters and sect masters. This made Bai Fei a little flattered, but soon, he came back to his senses and understood what was going on in front of him. Obviously, it should be because he had passed the 9 levels, so the senior leaders of the Blood Sword sect knew the news, and came over and threw an olive branch to him. Bai Fei knew that after passing the last 3 levels, there would be a bell to announce it. Bai Fei knew very well that after passing the 9 levels, he would definitely attract a lot of attention, and even many elders would want to accept him as a disciple. However, he still underestimated the value of passing the 9 levels, and actually attracted so many high-level people, even the deputy leader of the inner sect. This was indeed unexpected for Bai Fei. This gave Bai Fei a headache all of a sudden. If it were in the past, he would definitely be ecstatic, but now, Bai Fei doesn't want to become a disciple of anyone, because he now has a system. With a system, what master do you need? With a master, you are even less free. However, now that so many eyes are staring at me, it would be a bad thing if I don't choose someone to become a disciple of. So, after thinking about this, Bai Fei said with a stiff upper lip, "Thank you elders, deputy sect masters, and sect masters for your kindness to me, but I am still a little confused. Can you please let me think about it before replying to you?" Hearing Bai Fei's words, an inner sect elder said directly, don't think so much, just worship me as your master. I am the first elder of the inner sect. Who is stronger than me? If you don't agree, come and fight." That this inner sect elder said this with great confidence and arrogance, but it must be said that he does have the confidence. However, as soon as he finished speaking, he attracted the contempt of other inner sect elders.